Have you ever watched the market and just wondered how professional quants and market makers seem to have a plan for every single move? Well, it's not magic, and it's definitely not luck. It's math. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and decode the exact system they use to navigate the chaos of a trading day.
So, to really get this, you first have to understand that we're talking about two completely different worlds, two totally different mindsets. On one side, you've got the typical retail approach, right? Static stop losses, trading on a gut feeling, and using the same position size for every trade. But on the other side, that's the institutional logic. It's a world driven by heavy-duty options math, the Greeks, and position sizing is always changing, always dynamic, based on a formula called the Kelly criterion.
Okay, so that brings up a huge question. With all this insane math running in the background, how on earth do professionals make split-second decisions? How do they take all of that market chaos and boil it down into something simple, something they can actually act on when the pressure is on?
Well, the answer is surprisingly simple, and frankly, it's pretty brilliant. They use what the source material calls the traffic light system. It's like a translation layer. All that complex stuff, gamma exposure, order flow toxicity, you name it, gets converted into three dead simple conditions. Green light, we're safe. Orange light, a warning, and red light, immediate danger. That's it.
So how does this actually play out during the day? Let's walk through it, starting with the pre-market and those absolutely critical opening moves. Think of this as setting the stage for the first big battle of the day. Here's the timeline for that first crucial hour. The work starts way before the bell, at 9:10 a.m., with pre-market checks. Then at 9:30, it's all about analyzing that opening range. And by 10:30, it's time for a reality check. And as we're about to see, each of these moments has its own special tool. First thing you need to know in the pre-market is the daily expected move, or DEM. And I love this analogy from the source material. Think of it as your daily gas tank. It's a mathematically calculated volatility speed limit for the day. It tells you, straight up, how much fuel the market probably has for a big move either up or down.
Okay, so now you know how much fuel is in the tank. The very next question is, what kind of game are we playing today? Is it going to be a choppy, back-and-forth ping-pong match, or are we strapping in for a wild, trending roller coaster ride?
And here's how they figure that out. The tool for this is called the Hurst exponent, or H. It's simple. If H is less than 0.5, you're in a ping-pong match. The market wants to revert back to the average, which means fading the extremes is probably your best bet. But if H is greater than 0.5, you're on a roller coaster. The market is trending hard, and you do not want to fight that momentum.
All right, now for one of the most important metrics of the entire day, gamma exposure, or GEX. Just think of it as the dealer panic meter. See, market makers are constantly hedging their books, and GEX measures their total exposure. And the absolute key number this spits out is something called the zero gamma level. And you can see right here why that level is so critical. It acts like a tripwire. When the market is trading above zero gamma, dealers are a force for stability. They sell into rallies, they buy the dips, and it keeps things pretty orderly. That's a green or maybe an orange light. But if the market breaks below that zero gamma line, everything flips. Their hedging forces them to sell into an already falling market, basically pouring gasoline on the fire. That is a code red situation, no question. Okay, let's fast forward to the middle of the day. The morning craziness has usually died down, and things can look deceptively calm. But this is precisely when the pros go on shark watch, looking for those hidden dangers that lurk just beneath the surface. And your number one tool for this is called VPIN. It's a mouthful, volume synchronized probability of informed trading. But the nickname says it all, the hidden shark alarm. This metric is designed to sniff out when the big, informed players, the sharks, are quietly and systematically unloading huge positions, even if the price hasn't started to drop yet.
So let's say the VPIN alarm starts flashing. You know a shark is in the water, and they're selling. But that's really only half the story, isn't it? The next question a pro immediately asks is there anyone on the other side ready to absorb all that selling? In other words, is there a safety net?
And that's where the absorption ratio comes in. If VPIN is the alarm bell, this is your safety net. It literally measures the buying from one group, say domestic institutions, against the selling from another, like foreign institutions. If that ratio is high, it means there's a strong floor to catch the market. If it's low, there might be nothing but air below. All right, now as we get deeper into the afternoon, the institutional playbook starts to zoom out. It stops being just about what's happening right here, right now, and starts to be about how our little market fits into the giant global puzzle. It's time to look for clues from around the world. And the first tool for that is a classic, Pearson correlation.
In really simple terms, this just calculates the strength of the invisible string tying our market to a big global player, like the German DAX or even the US dollar. It tells you, point blank, who's leading the dance at this very moment.
But where the real money is made is when these normally stable relationships break down. That's when pros jump on what's called the seesaw trade, using a strategy called statistical arbitrage. So for example, if tech stocks and bank stocks always move together, but suddenly one shoots up and the other drops, a quant might buy the loser and short the winner, just betting on that relationship snapping back to normal.
All right, we are in the home stretch now, the last half hour of the trading day. This is where things get wild, and it can literally make or break your entire P&L. So of course, the institutional playbook has a specific set of tools just for finishing the day with a solid mathematical edge.
And this is where we run into something the source calls the 3 p.m. fakeout. And it's all driven by a little-known options Greek called charm. You see, as you get closer to the closing bell, time decay on options goes into overdrive. And this forces market makers into these huge, mechanical, almost robotic buying or selling programs just to stay hedged. It has absolutely nothing to do with where they think the market is going.
And the bell rings. Day's over. And let's say you had a great day. Now you face maybe the single most important risk decision of all. How much of that hard-earned capital do you dare risk on an overnight position, where you're totally exposed to whatever news breaks around the world?
Well, the institutional playbook doesn't guess. It doesn't use a gut feeling. It calculates. The answer comes from a famous formula called the Kelly criterion. You plug in your strategy's win rate and its average win/loss ratio, and it spits out the exact, mathematically perfect fraction of your capital to risk. It's not an opinion, it's just the answer.
And this quote just nails the entire philosophy. It's about taking your ego, your fear, your greed, and throwing it right out the window when you make the most important decision. The formula gives you the number. You place the trade, not a dollar more and not a dollar less.
So let's just tie this all together. What is the playbook, really? First, you trade with a system, not your gut. Period. Second, you have to realize that the time of day tells you which specific tool you need to use. Third, the whole point is to translate all this crazy complexity into simple, actionable signals, your traffic light. And finally, and maybe most importantly, you manage risk with math, not with emotion.
And that really leaves us with just one last question for you to think about. Now that you've seen how the system works on the inside, you have to ask yourself, are you trading with a real mathematical plan? Or are you just the person on the other side of their trades?